The last time you posted about your kids on social media, did you think how it might affect their credit score? Today on Explore Audio from the University of Florida's Explore magazine, we're talking to legal scholar Stacey Steinberg, who's a world expert on sharenting, the term for what parents and others share about kids online. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
To start us off, what's one thing that you wish you could impress upon people about sharenting?
That's a great question. I wish that I can impress upon people that this needs to be part of our child rearing discourse, that it's not that sharenting is right or wrong, but it's something that parents should take seriously, and they should think about it just like they think about what they're going to feed their kids, where they're going to educate their kids. I just wish that this was something that parents took more seriously and thought about, and when their kids got older, that they invited their kids into the conversation.
We talk a lot about the dangers in the article, from identity theft to more child pornography, but there's also that privacy issue, and that kids don't typically get a say in what constitutes their digital footprint. Why is that an issue?
Well, when I grew up, there was no such thing as social media. And so the mistakes or the embarrassing things that I did were kind of left in childhood's wake. It was left behind. It wasn't something that followed me into adulthood. Nowadays, the information that's shared online can absolutely follow a child into adulthood. Pictures that might be embarrassing, stories that might not put them in such a flattering light. Those might be things that were more meant to be intimate family moments, or things that were meant to be shared with individuals who were in the child's life years ago. And social media, in some ways, takes away that opportunity to leave childhood behind. So I also think that, as we become of age, oftentimes we want to embrace values that are different from our parents, or we want to kind of separate from their identities. And sometimes social media runs the risk, if a parent is posting a lot about their child, the child has less of an ability to fully define themselves as an adult on their own terms. Of course, that has to be balanced with how much in the United States we value family autonomy and the importance of kids being able to learn their parents' values and be part of that family unit.
A topic that we didn't get into in the article, but it's really fascinating, is parents who make money off of putting their kids online as influencers or monetizing the content that they create about their families. What developments do you think we might see regarding kidfluencers in the near future?
So this topic has really exploded in the last few months, and I have a few law students who are actually writing papers about this very topic. We're seeing that some states are creating laws that would protect some of the assets that families make when parents profit off of how they share about their kids online. And it'll be interesting to see those cases as they play out in the courtroom. If there are challenges to it. It seems like a great idea. It'll be interesting to see how it meshes with family autonomy rights that we also hold so dear in our country.
Could you talk a bit about your photography and how it has shaped your approach to kids' privacy online?
Sure. I've been a hobbyist photographer for most of my life. And in around 2012, I started taking pictures for other families in Gainesville. And that slowly became a service project where I was taking pictures for kids with chronic medical conditions like cancer at UF Health, at the Children's Hospital. And I was taking a lot of pictures, and with the family's blessing, we shared those pictures and their stories online. And that did a lot of good to form community, to connect kids with the people who are supporting them outside the four corners of their hospital room. It created a way for the families to document their journeys, and also just the happiness that also existed alongside of the IV polls. But I started to wonder how that information that I was sharing about kids, how that could put their privacy at risk, and how they might feel when they become older to see that so much of their medical information was shared with a large crowd. And so as I tried to figure out how I felt about it, I started to do the research and realized that maybe other people could benefit from the research as well.
So you've been widely published and quoted on the topic of sharenting in the media. And emails and calls asking for your expertise are still pouring in years after you published your book on sharenting, right?
Yeah, yes. This week alone, I think I have 3 podcast interviews. So it gets a little bit overwhelming, especially because I have all sorts of new things that I'm interested in.
What are you focused on now?
Part of my job is that I run a juvenile law clinic, and we represent children who are in foster care. And there's a great need for our lawyers to represent kids. So a lot of the kids that I represent are in crisis, and I find that I'm devoting a lot of my time to meeting their immediate needs.
When you get angry comments or pushback on your writing or your expert commentary, what is it that people say?
That's a great question. When I started to write, for, like, I remember specifically when I was writing for the Washington Post, writing pieces about sharenting, I felt a strong need to advocate for the families who chose to continue to share online, because I thought that I would get a lot of pushback from families who had blogs or families that shared regularly, that my advice was curtailing, for example, their right to free speech. But really, the feedback that I got was the opposite. I find that parents who generally do share welcome the information. There are a lot of people, I think, that believe parents should never be able to share, and they don't really seem to want to make space for a conversation or for a debate. So most of the negative feedback I get are actually people who think I don't take a firm enough line against sharenting, as opposed to the other way around, which is what I would have expected.
You suggest that people think carefully about what they're sharing, and who they're sharing it with for their kids' well-being. But people might wonder if their kids will think that they don't care if they post less, or if their posting is less public. What do you say about that concern?
I think I share it sometimes. I think in reality, our kids aren't thinking that deeply about how much we're sharing about each. But I have 3 kids, and during gymnastics season, I'm sharing a lot more about my gymnast than I am about my other two. My daughter, when I was getting ready I gave a TEDx talk in Austria a few years ago, and my perception of her wishes at the time were that I didn't use a lot of her personal stories or information. But when she went to watch the TEDx talk after it was put online, she was actually not kind of, she was upset with me that there were so many more pictures of her brothers than there were of her. So, I think it's difficult. Kids want to know that their parents are proud of them. And what I try to do, maybe not always as well as I would like, is I try to make sure my kids know that I'm proud of them, whether or not I share that pride on social media, and that I'd be proud of them if they didn't want me to share. And sometimes I share because they ask me to share, because it's something they're really proud of that means something to them. So I think social media, as a parent, it's important to see that there are benefits, risks, experiences that don't belong alone to the parent, that oftentimes our kids are greatly affected.
That's a great point. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Allison Clark, the writer of the Explore magazine article about Stacey Steinberg's work on sharenting in the fall 2023 issue. Thanks for listening to Explore Audio, and if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, let us know at communications@research.ufl.edu.